Hey everyone, Dan here. We are after market close on Monday, August 2nd. We're going to take our daily look at SoFi. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and come to your own conclusions based on that. All right, so SoFi up almost 2% today on a volume of 15 million on the dot, or as we run out of decimal points, versus average volume of about 11.5 million. So this is one of the things that there's two things that I've been screaming about with SoFi that I think are important to today. One is that we need more volume. And I have been saying that I'd really like to see it more toward like the 18 million volume range. And I still think that that holds true. I'm hoping that earnings gives the spotlights and the interest, and sort of leads it in that direction. The other thing, speaking of earnings, that I've been talking about is the potential. I made the case, I think it was in last Friday's video, about why I think SoFi is a strong contestant for an earnings run-up. That it has shown, previous hype, and obviously a lot of that comes with the SPAC, but it's previous activity, and I go through it in that video, so just refer back to that one if you want more details. But I think based on its historicals, it has the strong potential to run up ahead of this earnings report. Plus, with good earnings that came out last time, I think that is another strong indication. Now, nothing really changing on this daily chart here, so we'll go over the indicators in a moment to point those things out, but these things still hold true to me. 1465 as the down bounce zone. Actually, that purple box, which stretches closer to $15, I think is the actual beginning of that bounce zone. And then 1664 would be the next actual supply and demand zone that I would be looking for it to flip from support or from resistance to support. Right now sitting at 1573 after hours. I have all the computer fans kicking in, so I'll try my best to edit out the background noise, but apologies if it's a little bit distracting. Let's bear with each other. So MACD continuing its bullish crossover here, as you would expect. So we were long anticipating this, right? We were watching this bearish momentum just kind of crush us. A bunch of people got their souls crushed during that period of time, and then got very happy when there was this run up, and then we retraced all of that, and now we're trying to kind of settle in since that, big letdown after that day that was almost 10% up. But it did. The good thing that it did really do at that time was to help kill this bearish momentum. And we're seeing here slowly, very slowly, but steadily, we see the bullish momentum rising. What I would rather see that rising up slowly but steadily, especially into earnings, versus something like this, where we see this really herky-jerky run up after, this is just like an odd period of time, right? The bearish momentum was picking up, and then without even trailing off, it just flipped to green, and then it just kind of very quickly topped out essentially on the histogram, and then fell through really significantly. So a lot of times with those sort of herky-jerky price movements and movements in momentum, that's what you see, unless there's a really great reason why it would put it just sort of like into the next level or into the next stratosphere of price action. And obviously that's not what we're seeing with SoFi at the moment. So that's why I'm okay with this slow but steady jump up. But I'm still watching this very, very closely, because this was my first indication that we might see a strong run up here toward earnings. Now in the RSI, I'm still waiting on the daily for it to make a run at this midline. So again, I'm really looking at this midline. What I want to see is essentially this that's happening here. I want to see it continue to make higher lows, much like you would look for on a price chart, and I want to see its established support over that 50 level on the RSI. I think that'll definitely give it the necessary strength that it needs to get support at 1664. Could even give it enough momentum, especially if it were to double dip into the overbought territory by coming down and tapping the mid-range after it's already in overbought territory. That could give it the oomph that it needs to make a run at that 18 level. I keep calling it the 18 level. It's a 1791 on the green area here, but to me that's green because to me that's where I think there might be a bunch of buy orders that could get triggered and could set off in that area if we can really like make a strong run at that 18 level. Now on the MA side of things, we do have this bearish formation. So this is the last kind of bearish formation that we have at the moment. And, you know, mostly what I'm looking for is the 20, that purple line. I'm looking for the price. You see it today, it's stretched up, the wick stretched up over there, but it just got bounced back down. But if we could establish over that 20, I think you could see something similar to here, right? It bounced its head on that 20 several times, then it was able to get support over the 20, and that really helped carry it like a wave up and over. And then obviously when it lost that support on the 20, the first time that it confirmed an opening and closing of a candlestick below that, it really really lost and plummeted since then. So that to me is the next big thing to happen. Not necessarily the RSI. Obviously the MACD would have to continue to act in a bullish formation or in a bullish way in order for this to happen, but getting support over that 20 MA to me would be really, really significant. Help carry us up and over. Now let's zoom into today to kind of unpack what happened, and I'll kind of take you through my day as it unfolded as I tried to kind of log it as it was going through. So let me flip over here to my Twitter. We'll get to this thing in a second. But here at about 11 a.m. this morning, I had tweeted out that SoFi punched through, meaning it punched through this downtrend line. So this, we're tracking this. Let me do this on the 5 days so you can see what I'm talking about here. And I'm going through this just to sort of, a lot of times folks ask how to unpack things during the day. And I'm going to be doing more stuff coming down the line with things having to, I don't want to get too specific, but things having to do with price action during the day. So live trading types of things. More to come on that. That's a big undertaking. But because that comes up a lot, I wanted to sort of pop in and share a few, to me, significant milestones of things that I look for during the trading day and what it points me to. So in this one, I'm talking about it punching through this downtrend. So we were tracking this downtrend that you would have seen in last Friday's video, and it punched through during the pre-market, like right at open in the pre-market, came down and filled that gap that it had left nicely, but it was following the downtrend down in order to do that, and it followed it down a bit more than it needed to in order to just fill the gap. So to me, I started to get a little bit concerned that we were just kind of following this downtrend. Now, you may have heard me talk about this a lot with channels before. So a lot of times when something jumps out of a channel, it'll very quickly return back to that channel, like to the outer bounds of that channel, meaning if it went out the bottom of the channel, it'll oftentimes retrace back up to the bottom bound of the channel and still be outside the channel, but be following that channel up, but just outside of it. And so to me, this was doing kind of that same thing. It jumped out from the trend line, but then just kept following it down, and that can be just as bad, right? Even if it's not trapped under here, we don't want it to see continue follow the trend line down just because it's on top of the trend line. It still doesn't do anyone any good. And so at that time, that was mostly what I was looking for. And I said it needs to push off, create some distance, and run at that red box around 1572. Establish support. There's the best case scenario. That opens the door to the mid 16s, then a run at 18. Okay, so pushing off. So we saw it did go ahead and pushed off, right? Pushed off very soon after I had sent that tweet out, actually. I sent that tweet at 11 a.m. and at 11:10, it was already starting this upward trend. Make a run at the red box. It made a run way over the red box, but then came very quickly back down, but then tried to make another run off of it into that 16 zone that I talked about here, run to the mid 16s. And so that's where we saw it run at that moment. Now, when did this come through? This came through at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I did an update and said, so far so good. So at 1 o'clock, we would have been right here. Okay, we would have been making the first approach up toward this white box that we have here. Most important thing now, if we test 1580 to 1575, that it holds, right? Because what I was looking at here was that I didn't want it to come up and then come back down again and then fall through. That would have been obviously very catastrophic at that moment, at least for the intraday price action. I don't mean this in a year from now, investing in SoFi kind of thinking. I mean this in intraday only, because we've seen, how many times have we seen SoFi? I mean, this is pretty close to that. It has a nice run up and then it just bleeds all of those gains out throughout the day and then barely finishes green or finishes flat, So we've seen that happen a lot, and I didn't want that to happen again today. So my take on this was, hey, if you see us come back down to this red box zone, it needs to hold that or it's going to be very, very bad. And so we come over and, we can zoom out of this one and then go to my last tweet of the day. Just again, I don't know if this is super boring or helpful at all. At 2 o'clock, I tweeted out that our top out test here for SoFi, see the white box sustaining this uptrend all trading day would be a huge step in my opinion. Now I know we weren't able to do quite that last part, but pointing out here the danger of this topping out. We see 3 topping out right here in this white zone, and I think that this was on the hour chart though. Oh no, it's right here. Yep, on the 1 hour chart. So if we take a look at what I was looking at there during the day today, so we saw we did top out again, right? So the thing I was warning about was, you see topping out here, and already topping out here with that green wick. And then I said, be careful. Obviously, if we top out here again, this is the big top out test. So I would have loved to seen it flip over there and then make a run at that 1664. But just because that's what I want it to do doesn't mean anything. It got topped out again and pushed itself back down. Now, luckily, it caught support over the red zone, because that was the thing that I was worried about way back at 1 o'clock, right? Was that it wasn't going to be able to hold that. So to me, like overall, obviously I'd rather have this day than a down day, but there were a few concerning factors. If this red box continues to hold as support, it will quell a bunch of my concerns. But the biggest concern that I have at the moment is this like 16 and a quarter ish zone, and the propensity to top out there now several times. And of course, I worry that if it can't reach up there next time, that it could then fall through this red box. Now, on the bullish scenario there, to me, the lesser worrying scenario is that it comes up to that box and all of the sell pressure is there. So all of the folks that had been trying to sell or setting sells or deciding to sell at that price point for whatever reason, that they're just no longer around, right? Those sells have all been consumed by what was sold off here, maybe even some of what was sold off there, some of what was sold off here, and then obviously what sold off from there today. Now, if that's the case, then I'll expect to see this to fly through. I would expect to see this to fly through and really make a run toward that 1664 next resistance level. And from there, that's where we have some pretty nice run room. I still think there's probably some stickiness here at about 17 and a quarter, but these are just kind of wicks, and there's support there, but that might be a whole lot of nothing. But that run to 18 looks pretty promising to me once we get to that level, and especially if the next attempt at that white box, we kind of blow through it. That's mostly what I'm going to be looking for, because you also see the high that it topped out at there on the last time it approached. These highs are all increasing, right? So we have a bit of an uptrend here on these higher highs. So look for that to continue as well. And that would then just sort of organically push us over the top of that white box. All right, so that's the one that I'm going to be looking at for the money zone to get us out of that white box. All right, so now very quickly, I want to go through just a couple of other things. One, still there's a lot of work to do, in my opinion, on the institutional ownership side of things. So I think that, again, earnings might help usher in some of this as well. The want for institutions to come in. Right now, institutional ownership just under 2%, so it's nothing. You see 22 million bought, again, nothing in the vast scheme of things. And you see here all very, very small percentage of the portfolio and then of ownership in SoFi itself. So a lot of room for growth, which right now makes things feel undervalued and chaotic, but I think could be a strong buoy in the coming months. And then the other thing is, I know there was a lot of chatter about Square acquiring Afterpay for what, 29 billion, US dollars, and sort of what that could mean for SoFi. I went through and I looked at some of their sales. This was a press release that they put out with some of their sales numbers. And then I was looking back at SoFi's last earnings that came out. And, all in all, to me, here's an article about how Square overpaid. My take on this is basically that Square, I think they know what they're doing. I think they're very, very smart. I think they're a strong competitor to whomever they compete with. And I think that they're probably acquiring Afterpay for something that folks just aren't even necessarily piecing together yet in the way in which Jack Dorsey or whomever is envisioning it playing out, and the benefit that they're actually assuming that they're going to get from it. Now, the other thing is, I don't see Afterpay and SoFi really being that close of a business. The only way in which it kind of has any ripple effect in my mind is just that this idea, like Forbes is putting out here, that Square really overpaid a lot for Afterpay, and the extent to which that could then trickle over into folks just kind of accepting the idea that fintech is in a really interesting position over the course of the next few years. It's going to be a dominant force, and there's going to probably be a lot of consolidation business-wise, a lot of mergers and acquisitions, strong possibility for that. And that's getting used to the idea of overpaying could help SoFi in the sense of like their multiple should be X, but it is Y. And so in that way, if we overall get into a sense of where things get just larger multiples, then that could be helpful. But that could also then loom to a bubblish kind of situation. And to me, that's not really that beneficial to most people. So, to me, it's a bit of a mixed bag. And also, I think a big part of the acquisition is potentially around users. So to me, I'm going to be really looking for, I know we had mentioned users previously in the earnings video, but we see here active customers that they had reported. And we know that SoFi only has, 2.5 million active users as of their last reporting dates. And so 2.28, so just over 2.25 million. So to me, getting the user base to jump significantly, I think it's going to have a strong impact on earnings. I know earnings report isn't monthly active users report or something like that. It is called earnings report. But in these growth stocks and in this day and age, I think that will be taken, as a really solid show of strength that could lead to future earnings, especially with the big umbrella that SoFi is looking to create, and knowing the selling and cross-selling potential of each and every one of those customers as SoFi sort of builds out its overall grand vision that it has. All right, so that's my take on that, but that's, exciting day overall in SoFi. It's making this weird formation at the moment, but we'll see what that evolves into. It'll make sense over time. All right, well, I hope your trading week is off to a good start, and I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.